Good morning. Today's headlines: Hunter Biden's lawyers say U.S. prosecutors reneged on a plea deal, and a deadline looms for an update on the status of his tax crimes case.
And we bring you election analysis, a live discussion on how the appointment of a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden may affect his father's campaign.
GOP presidential hopefuls campaigned at Iowa State Fair over the weekend. Governor Kim Reynolds held fireside chats with some of the candidates.
Rescue efforts continue in the devastating aftermath of the Maui wildfires that destroyed most of the town Lahaina last week. The death toll now stands at over 90 people, but the figure is expected to rise drastically.
Abuse of power allegations and First Amendment questions after Kansas police raid a small-town newspaper. We have the details.
Officials in California recently announced the largest ever drug bust involving illegal marijuana cultivation. We spoke with a local sheriff.
And don't go on vacation stuck with a cold. We speak to a medical professional on why summer colds are a thing and get some natural remedies.
Good morning. Welcome to NTD. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm Evelyn Lee. Today is Monday, August 14th.
And you know, Evelyn, regarding the news of the special counsel appointment into the Hunter Biden probe, the real question is, will David Weiss follow the Hunter money trail even if it leads to other members of the Biden family?
Well, yeah, I think that's not really clear, though, because he's not exactly independent, right? He still has to report to A.G. Garland.
Yeah, that is a good point. And, you know, also, Weiss has to realize that if he does follow the Hunter money trail, he has to be the target of any media that don't agree with that pursuit.
Good point.
Yes, and we're starting off today with the top news, which centers around this case. Hunter Biden's lawyers say U.S. prosecutors reneged on a plea deal that would have resolved his tax and firearms charges. That was in a late court filing yesterday. A U.S. district judge rejected the proposed deal last month. She raised concerns about its legality and the scope of immunity it offered. Delaware federal prosecutors said Friday that Hunter Biden may be headed for a criminal trial after the plea negotiations broke down, and that more charges could be coming as their probe continues. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has appointed U.S. Attorney David Weiss as special counsel in the Hunter Biden investigation. Weiss was appointed by former President Trump and has been investigating the case since 2019. A Delaware federal judge gave Hunter Biden's counsel a deadline of noon today for an update on the status of the tax crimes case.
A top Democrat has acknowledged that Hunter Biden, quote, did a lot of really unlawful and wrong things.
Representative Jamie Raskin's statement comes after the DOJ appointed a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden.
U.S. Attorney David Weiss has now been named special counsel. Raskin told ABC Weiss can make decisions about what, where, and when to charge Hunter. The plea agreement Weiss arranged with Hunter that would likely have kept him out of jail for tax and gun charges has apparently fallen through.
Raskin says Weiss now wants to be certain that he has the authority to bring charges wherever he wants. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy questioned the appointment, writing on X, "If Weiss negotiated the sweetheart deal that couldn't get approved, how can he be trusted as special counsel?"
What's more, House Oversight Chair James Comer said the move is an attempt by Biden's DOJ to stonewall congressional oversight of alleged corruption of the Biden family. It's roughly 5 months until Iowa's lead-off caucuses for the 2024 election. Republican presidential candidates campaigned at the must-stop Iowa State Fair in Des Moines over the weekend. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on Fair's weekend events.
Iowa kicks off the state-by-state Republican nominating contests on January 15th. Governor Kim Reynolds held fireside chats with GOP candidates on Saturday. The Iowa governor says she's remaining neutral in the 2024 race and wants everyone to have a fair shot. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was one of the presidential candidates to take part.
We are in danger of being the first generation that turns over less opportunities to our kids than the opportunities we've inherited, and that is unacceptable.
A group of protesters was ushered out during DeSantis' chat. Former President Trump declined to take part in the chat with Reynolds, but told reporters he has a good relationship with her and got her elected. The leading GOP 2024 candidate arrived with an entourage of Florida U.S. House members. He called the indictments against him election interference.
Biden put it out because he can't win the fairway. He's way down in the polls.
Despite Trump's ongoing legal battles, no candidate in modern history has gone on to lose the nomination with such a big lead in a contested primary. Other presidential candidates attending included former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Haley said during her Fairside chat that Iowa's importance goes beyond it being the first caucus.
Because right now, China's got his eyes set on Iowa. Why? China is our #1 national security threat. They have been planning war with us for years. And that's not being dramatic. Look at the infiltration that China has done.
The former UN ambassador spoke about the impact China has on U.S. agriculture, saying it steals seeds from the state's farmers in efforts to shore up food security.
Everybody's joking now. The clock's run out. Time's up. Oh.
GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy is looking to engage younger voters in the 2024 election.
We the people, how do we take this to the next generation? That's what this is about. Thank you for that.
Ramaswamy shrugged off a question about the possibility of becoming vice president, but says he wants Trump as his advisor if he wins the White House. Senator and 2024 presidential hopeful Tim Scott is set to appear at the fair next weekend. The Iowa State Fair runs until Sunday, August 20th. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
2 witnesses are set to testify before a grand jury in Trump's Georgia election case tomorrow. It's part of the investigation of alleged efforts to overturn election results in the state. Former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia Jeff Duncan confirmed Saturday that he was subpoenaed to testify. He says he looks forward to answering questions around the 2020 election. In his words, Republicans should never let honesty be mistaken for weakness. An Atlanta-based reporter also confirmed Saturday he's been asked to testify. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis has indicated that potential indictments could be coming this week. The search continues for survivors on Maui in the aftermath of the horrific wildfires that obliterated the town of Lahaina. Members of the U.S. National Guard and the Army are assisting rescue efforts on the island.
The death toll now stands at over 90 people and is expected to rise drastically as search parties have only covered around 3% of the affected area. Relatives of missing people have been urged to provide DNA to assist with the identification process.
Some residents are now questioning if more could have been done to issue advance warnings before the fire hit the town, as sirens stationed around the island never sounded. Widespread power of and communication outages hindered other forms of alerts.
The cause of the fire is still unknown. An estimated 0.5% of the island burns each year, but none of those fires have burned as rapidly. NTD's Cost M&S has more updates on the Maui fires.
Cadaver dogs continue the search for survivors in the aftermath of what has become the deadliest fire in the U.S. in more than a century. The scale of the damage has now become clear. According to FEMA, the fire destroyed thousands of structures and burned more than 2,000 acres of land. It is estimated that rebuilding efforts will cost more than $5 billion. FEMA said on Sunday more than 250 of its employees had been deployed, including staffers who help those in shelters with financial aid. Many people are still frantically looking for relatives and friends.
So we cannot go in there yet, and we've been trying to locate my brother, Glenn, and my sister-in-law, Plea, and thank God through this family assistance, we're able to get the word that they are safe.
Hopefully I get all the resources that can help them right now. So. But I will continue until everything's sure. I will behind all the. I will help everything I could. There are family needs in there because I work in Lahaina site. So.
In the short term,
Hawaii Governor Josh Green warned the death toll would continue to increase as more victims were discovered. Residents of Lahaina and Kula have been advised not to drink any running water, including boiled water, and only take short showers in well-ventilated areas to avoid possible exposure to chemical vapors. Hawaii's Attorney General has opened an investigation into the island's alert system after complaints that not enough was done to warn residents of the disaster. Officials blamed communications network failures and winds of up to 80 miles per hour from an offshore hurricane, as well as a separate wildfire dozens of miles away. But no definitive cause for the fires has yet been determined. Footage released by the U.S. Defense Department shows members of the Hawaiian National Guard last week assisting with search and rescue efforts. U.S. Army soldiers also provided assistance in gathering donations of food and other supplies. The National Guard said it had activated over 130 troops to assist with the response. An additional 200 staff members are expected to arrive in the coming days. Costa Menes, NTD News.
Efforts are already underway by the Salvation Army and the Red Cross to provide food and emergency shelters for those affected by the fires.
Hawaiian authorities have encouraged those seeking to help to donate to the Maui Strong Fund, which is being organized by the Hawaii Community Foundation. If you wish to help, you can do so by visiting hawaiicommunityfoundation.org/Maui Strong.
In another news, an investigation is underway after a massive explosion shook a Pittsburgh suburb over the weekend. 5 people were killed, including an adolescent. Another person is being treated for critical injuries.
Crews from 18 different local fire departments converged on the scene in Plum, Pennsylvania on Saturday morning. They found one house leveled completely and 2 neighboring houses on fire.
It took crews from 18 different fire departments to put out the fire and search the rubble for survivors. 57 firefighters were treated on the scene for minor issues.
A local power company representative said the gas system there was operating as designed. Gas has been shut off in the area for safety reasons.
The explosion is under investigation by the County Fire Marshal's office along with borough and county law enforcement. Officials say it may be a long process. A fighter jet crashed during an air show in Michigan on Sunday.
The pilot and a passenger were forced to eject from the MiG-23 before it crashed.
None of the spectators at Michigan Thunder Air Show reported injuries. The show had to be stopped because of the smoke from the plane's fire.
The jet ended up crashing into a nearby apartment complex parking lot where it landed on several unoccupied cars. The pilot and passenger in the jet were treated for minor injuries after they parachuted to safety. The cause of the ejection and crash have still not been determined.
Allegations of abuse and of power and First Amendment violations are being made after police raided a Kansas newspaper last week.
Police effectively closed down the Marion County Record, seizing phones, computers, and their file server.
Police served a warrant on the small-town newspaper after suspecting its involvement in the identity theft of a local business owner. The warrant was signed by a local judge, but usually police are required to get a subpoena for materials taken from journalists.
Local Police Chief Gideon Cody said that there are exceptions to subpoena requirement if there is reason to believe the journalist is involved in wrongdoing. He also said that when the truth becomes public, the justice system will be vindicated.
The owner and publisher of the newspaper, Eric Myers, says he plans to sue the city of Marion and the individuals involved in the raid. The Marion County Record says its 98-year-old co-owner collapsed on Saturday and died.
The newspaper attributes Joan Myers' death to stress after what it calls the illegal raid on her home and the newspaper's office.
NTD could not verify the state of Joan Myers' health before the warrant was served or her cause of death.
And still to come, we bring you election analysis, a live discussion on how the appointment of a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden may affect his father's campaign.
And officials in California recently announced the largest ever drug bust operation involving illegal marijuana cultivation. A local sheriff told us it's just a drop in the bucket.
Anyone who's ever sold a home can tell you it is really hard. That's why who you work with matters. Together with Homelight, we've helped thousands of people sell faster and for the best price.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right seat.
We would like to help you maintain a healthy body and mind so that you have the strength to enjoy a productive and fulfilling life. We want to keep you informed so that you can make the best decisions to support your family. We want to offer you the best education so you can join us in building a positive future for humanity. We hope to inspire you with goodness and compassion, to nurture your heart and soul with love and kindness, and fill your spirit with positive things. We'd like to share the tastiest meals with you, because you are part of our family. We want to bring you the most interesting and exciting things so we can enjoy every single day together. Ganjing World, technology for humanity.
Welcome back. We turn now to updates surrounding the presidential election. We're bringing in a reporter from NTD's sister media. Jeff Louderback, reporter for the Epoch Times, joins us live. Jeff, it's great to have you on the show. How do you expect the appointment of a special counsel into Hunter Biden expect to affect President Joe Biden's campaign?
It'll be interesting because obviously we've seen with Donald Trump, it's galvanized his base. Each time he gets indicted, it seems like he becomes more and more popular and his base gets more galvanized. President Biden, will that happen? We will see. I'm here right now in Southern Ohio and Appalachia doing a story on how Appalachia will affect the Ohio and West Virginia Senate races. Those ultimately will have an impact on the 2024 presidential election. So we'll see that. We'll see if President Biden, it galvanizes his base like it does Donald Trump.
Sort of anticipating a kind of a mirror effect of happening there. And in speaking of Ohio and other swing states, we've seen this list of swing states apparently being expanding since 2020. And what can you tell us about the landscape of these toss-up states?
Well, it's interesting because Ohio used to be a toss-up state, but Donald Trump won decisively in 2016 and 2020. Pennsylvania, I think, still is. We're talking about border states to Ohio, but a lot of these toss-up states, it'll be determined by, like Kentucky. I'm covering the gubernatorial race here this November. Democrat Andy Beshear is the incumbent. Trump-backed Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General, is the Republican challenger. It'll be interesting to see what happens in states like Kentucky, Mississippi, and Louisiana, which Trump won. What will happen with the gubernatorial races this year will have an impact on 2024.
Yes, the gubernatorial sphere is very important, and also the state Supreme Court, like we saw in Wisconsin there, a very neck-and-neck state often. Janet Protasiewicz's victory over the conservative might be an indication, do you think, of how that state is going to lean next year?
Yeah, Wisconsin, you really never know what's going to happen in Wisconsin, and just like states like Pennsylvania and Virginia, it's just they used to be more certain, and now after obviously the election integrity issues in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania especially, we don't know how 2024 will shape out, but that state Supreme Court outcome is definitely impactful.
Yes, and you talk about election integrity. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, he said he's working with the State Department to ensure a fair and secure 2024 election. So what were some of the challenges the state faced in 2020, and how do you think 2024 will be different?
Well, I think Pennsylvania was a lot like Georgia. It had the computer issues, ballot harvesting. There's allegations of all that. So questions about it goes back to election integrity in general. There's varied opinions on it. Voters, that'll impact voters. Some people are skeptical, does my vote count? So that's going to be critical. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in these elections in November, the gubernatorial elections. And here in Ohio, there's an abortion amendment that, if passes, will enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution. That'll have a big impact on 2024, or at least the views of what will happen in 2024, as will how smoothly these elections go. Will people be confident in 2024?
And now Virginia has a slight blue lean, but we did see Governor Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, win in that state. So how do you think this is going to affect the polls in 2024?
Well, that's interesting because Glenn Youngkin won in Virginia, and he's a conservative. In mostly conservative Kentucky, Andy Beshear he's voted, I think Morning Consult did a poll last October. He was the most popular governor in the country. So those are states that you don't know what's going to happen, because obviously Virginia being a Democrat-controlled state, but a Republican governor, and Kentucky vice versa. So again, you just don't, I think it goes back to election integrity. How confident are people? And of course, what's going on with President Biden? Is he healthy? Does Gavin Newsom get in the race? I'm covering the RFK Jr. campaign. How formidable will he be in the next year? I think all those factors will determine what happens in 2024.
Yes, a lot of issues at play. Jeff Louderback, reporter for the Epic Times, thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you.
And over to California, state officials recently announced the largest ever drug bust operation involving illegal marijuana. But the local sheriff says it's less than 1% on the black market in his county. NTD's Jack Bradley brings us the details.
Good morning, Evelyn. Nearly $70 million worth of illegally grown marijuana was eradicated, and a dozen firearms were seized in Siskiyou County up in Northern California. The governor's office just announced the operation as the largest ever of its kind. But the county sheriff, Jeremiah LaRue, said even this hardly puts a dent in the problem.
It's only just a little dot, I guess, in the big picture. I mean, we probably have, anywhere between 2,000 to 2,500 different locations in our county that has cannabis growing illegally. And so this 68.5 million, it seems like a lot, but honestly, it's probably less than 1% of what we're seeing in Siskiyou County.
The bust targeted illegal growers that harm the environment and public. These grows use illegal pesticides and herbicides that are toxic to the environment and the user. But why is the black market thriving when recreational use is legal? Sheriff LaRue says that's because many legal marijuana dispensaries rely on the product from these illegal grows, as it's much cheaper to buy.
We know for a fact that the marijuana is making its way into dispensaries. So if you can imagine what that means, is that when people go to a dispensary to purchase cannabis and they want to, ensure that it is safe and that they are free of pesticides, as they should be, right now there's no way to guarantee that. And I think that should be a strong warning for people that do go and purchase cannabis, that they might actually be making an unhealthy choice. And I think that the state needs to do a better job of ensuring that if things are going to be legal, that they need to be done appropriately, and that people won't be ingesting pesticides that could potentially lead to cancer or more significant conditions.
Sheriff LaRue says another reason for the booming black market cannabis industry is that the penalties for breaking the state's marijuana laws are just a fine, no matter the scale of the violation.
Right now, 10,000 plants is the same violation as 8. And that's absolutely ridiculous. People are going to excess because there's no penalty. And I think one thing that I think most Americans would probably understand and agree with is that without laws, people will violate things, right? Some people need that structure. We can't rely on people's morals. You need to have some stuff on the books that you can really, sort of prosecute people for. And the hope is not to prosecute everyone, but if you have a law that you might get some jail time out of, or maybe be sent to prison for environmental damage, then maybe people will stop doing it, or maybe they'll be deterred.
These illegal cannabis grows continue to plague Siskiyou and its neighboring counties. LaRue says he appreciates the state's cannabis task force's recent crackdown, but it's going to take a lot more to solve the problem. Evelyn, back to you.
The NIH got millions in royalties from China and Russia. We spoke to an expert to hear what concerns around that are.
Taiwan's vice president made a brief stop in the U.S., saying the island won't back down to totalitarian threats, but his act has angered Beijing.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy?
Due to pollution in the oceans,
Most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3, greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. The NIH got $325 million in royalties from Chinese and Russian entities. Among the recipients were former NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins and Dr. Anthony Fauci and thousands of others. And for some context, the NIH allows inventors to receive up to $150,000 a year from royalties, and OpenTheBooks.com did not reveal how much money each of them received. I spoke to Anders Kaur. He's a publisher of the Journal for Political Risk and the principal at Core Analytics. He shared why there is a concern.
I think it comes from a number of different companies, including U.S. companies. But it is a concern that the NIH hasn't been more transparent in the past about where it's getting its money in terms of royalties, who that money goes to, who it companies it comes from, and whether there are any conflicts of interest. For example, a director who is overseeing at maybe a very high level, but nevertheless overseeing research that is being done by an entity, for example, a pharmaceutical company, that is also paying royalties to that director directly and also to his organization, the NIH. So yes, there's a big concern about lack of transparency at the NIH, and the reporting is now coming out that that's the case.
I see. Now we're going to go into that a little bit later, but so because let's to help for context, right? So because technically royalty payments are routine payments between licensee and licensor, right? So can you go in a bit more detail, like sum up what's the difference here?
Well, I would argue that no payment is routine. I think any payment is a serious issue that needs to be looked at, especially if it's coming from a country like China or Russia that's an adversary nation. Some of these payments are allegedly or reportedly from companies, for example, in Russia, that have been involved in bioweapons research. So I think that might be the exception to the rule, but still, it is a concern. It's a concern that the NIH hasn't been more transparent about it. The Commerce and Energy Committee at the U.S. House has, for 3 months, been asking NIH to provide more information, for example, about the China COVID issue, and they haven't. The origin issue, they haven't been forthcoming. So now the Commerce Committee is being forced to basically threaten to require, probably through a subpoena or some such, the NIH to provide those documents.
We saw that 58 payments allegedly, well, it seems like they went to Francis Collins and Anthony Fauci. So why are people closely inspecting that, do you think? What could their role, how could their role be significant in this?
Individual scientists at NIH have a maximum of $150,000 a year in terms of their outside royalty payments. So this would be just a fraction of their normal income. Fauci, for example, made over $400,000 a year at one point. So it is a fraction. However, it is also concerning because it's the part of their income that is variable and that could vary depending on whether or not the Chinese Communist Party likes what they're saying, likes what they're doing. So I think we really shouldn't have China or Russia funding our taxpayer-funded directors of the NIH. I think there have been similar issues with some other agencies, maybe the CDC. But you know, it is a conflict of interest. It's not just an apparent conflict of interest. They've said that they don't have research undergoing by a director, say, that is directly on that topic, where they're getting funded by the outside royalties. However, they could be funded by an entity that is doing research on something they're doing, I believe. They haven't been clear in the way they are replying. So it's been said that some of the replies from NIH are misleading. The Congress is saying that. So.
Interesting. Well, that and who received what remains to be seen, but that's definitely good. Some good insights to have right now. Thank you, Anders Core. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
A separatist and a troublemaker. That's what Beijing called Taiwan's Vice President William Lai over his short stay in the U.S.
Lai arrived in New York on Saturday. He said Taiwan won't be scared or cower in the face of authoritarian threats.
Lai was en route to Paraguay to attend the country's presidential inauguration. Paraguay is one of the only 13 countries that maintain formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan.
Lai is a frontrunner in Taiwan's January presidential elections. Taiwanese officials say China will likely launch military exercises near Taiwan this week, using Lai's stopover as a pretext to intimidate voters and make them, quote, fear war.
In response to Beijing's anger, both Taipei and Washington called Lai's stay routine and no cause for China to take provocative actions. Taiwan said the Chinese Communist Party was the real troublemaker, pointing to its standoff this month with the Philippines and its continued military harassment of Taiwan.
Beijing claims Taiwan as its own territory and has threatened to take it by force. That's despite never having ruled the island.
And now, getting to some short headlines from around the world.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered an increase in missile production to be ready for war. This after the U.S. and South Korea announced they will hold their largest ever military drill later this month. The annual summer exercises will mobilize tens of thousands of troops from both sides and some member states of the UN command.
Niger's military junta says it will prosecute ousted President Mohamed Bazoum for high treason. If found guilty, he could face the death penalty. The junta says West African politicians have attempted to derail a peaceful solution to the crisis in order to justify a military intervention.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has dismissed all military recruitment officers in the country. The move comes after a series of high-profile corruption cases caught headlines. Zelensky says abuses range from illegal enrichment to transporting draft-eligible men across the border despite a wartime ban on leaving the country.
Argentine voters punished the country's two main political forces in a primary election yesterday. They pushed a libertarian outsider candidate into first place in a huge shakeup in the race towards presidential elections in October. Javier Milei, an economist and admirer of former President Trump, is a real contender for the presidency.
And on that news with President Zelensky, earlier this year, he even fired a lot of officials over the procurement of wartime supplies.
Right, and that caused Ukraine's deputy defense minister to resign.
They've been really busy rooting out a lot of corruption over there.
That's right. And coming up, investing is important for retirement, college tuition, or for a house. NTD spoke to experts for tips on investing for beginners.
And don't be stuck with a cold on vacation. We speak to a medical professional on why summer colds are a thing and get some natural remedies after the break.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, no full bellies. All around the world, parents are struggling to feed their children. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. COVID, conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we're fed up. Fed up with the fact that hunger robs children of their childhood. Fed up with the lack of progress. Fed up with the injustice. Help us brighten the lives of children all over the world by visiting getfedupnow.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients. Prevent children from dropping out of school. Support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give before December 31st can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Childhood without food is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit getfedupnow.org today.
It's good to have you back with us. Are public libraries encouraged to focus on sexuality and race? NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with New Hampshire State Representative Arlene Quaratiello about what she calls the Marxist agenda of national organizations influencing public libraries.
One such organization is the nonprofit Collaborative Summer Library Program. Its homepage says, CSLP firmly stands against all racist practices, violence, and continued oppression of our African American community. We support those protesting against systemic racism and government corruption. Quaratiello says she was surprised by the content of one of the group's newsletters.
There was a training program described in one of the newsletters providing instruction in the process of becoming a disruptor in the context of being an LGBTQ disruptor.
Another training hosted by the Collaborative Summer Library Program covered inclusive best practices using pronouns. The Library Journal is another organization the New Hampshire representative feels is influencing libraries with its agenda. Quaratiello says she recently viewed its online professional development program called How to Build and Defend Inclusive Collections.
I always heard Martin Luther King saying you should be judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin.
Yet Quaratiello says race and other factors played a large role in which books to choose.
It's like there was some sort of checkbox and they had to reach a quota. And instead of judging books by the content of the book itself.
Cornell University Collection Development librarian Carson Williams was one of the speakers in the program.
He said, fostering an inclusive, safe, queer library environment is the most important thing we can do. And that as staff members, if we do this, we will be so loved and appreciated. All I'm asking for is neutrality. Public libraries should be neutral, and they're not.
Quaratiello also mentions the American Library Association. The Montana State Library Commission voted this month to withdraw from the association, saying, Our oath of office and resulting duty to the Constitution forbids association with an organization led by a Marxist. American Library Association President Emily Drabinski wrote on Twitter after being elected that she just can't believe that a Marxist lesbian who believes that collective power is possible to build and can be wielded for a better world is president-elect of ALA. Coratiello says the mentioned organizations have succeeded in implementing what she calls a woke agenda from the top down. To combat this, she advises people to work from the bottom up and get involved with local elections, specifically for library trustees, which she says have even more power than the library director in some states. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
NTD reached out to the several national organizations mentioned in the story. We asked for a response to accusations they are inappropriately focusing on sexuality and race. We did not hear back.
From social issues to finance, investing is important for retirement, college tuition, or for a house.
But starting to invest can be intimidating. To take your hard-earned money and to put it somewhere else where it's at risk of being lost is not for the faint of heart.
That's right. So here is a story on investing for beginners. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has more.
Investing your money can ensure you have enough for retirement, for college tuition, or for buying a house. It could potentially be the difference between living paycheck to paycheck and becoming a millionaire. But it can also intimidate people who've never done it before. Investing money means you're putting your money into things like stocks, bonds, and real estate. If the value of these things goes up over time, you have, in a sense, made money. But if it goes down, you've lost money. For beginners, experts suggest playing it safe.
Avoid individual stocks that have earnings announcements, 4 times a year. A calamity happens in there.
Don Kaufman is the co-founder of TheoTrade, a financial education firm. He advises putting money into funds that track many companies, so you're investing in many companies at once instead of just one. This spreads out the risk. If some of them do poorly, you won't lose that much money. If you put too much money into just one firm, it would be a disaster if that firm suddenly does very poorly. The market does frequently go down, but in the big picture, it mostly moves up.
Risk only what you're comfortable with, or what I actually term find kind of a warm and fuzzy spot of risk, and you absolutely unequivocally have to stick to that. No one ever actually turns around and says, look, my risk management was just paramount, it was beautiful. In this losing trade, I only lost X amount. Now I'm going to tell you, in the long run, that's what matters.
Kaufman believes too many people focus on profits, but he says profitability takes care of itself and that risk management is paramount. Warren Buffett once said, the first rule of an investment is don't lose money, and the second rule of an investment is don't forget the first rule. And finally, experts recommend education. Learn more about finance before throwing your money out there. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Those first steps to investing can be difficult to take, but it may pay off.
Yeah, and it probably gets easier once you've made the first step, right?
Yeah, a little experience.
Yeah, exactly. All right, going into break now. Coming up, don't be stuck with a cold on vacation. We speak to a medical professional on why summer colds are a thing and get some natural remedies.
And we take a look at a woman reviving a long-lost tradition. She's learned an ancient craft from her mentor and is now hoping to find someone who shares the same passion. Stay tuned for that story.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
It's all good, baby.
Is it really all good? If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/therightseat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
Good to have you back. Always wondered how people are catching colds when it's warm. I definitely had one this season.
It does sound counterintuitive, but hopefully it wasn't on your vacation.
It wasn't, luckily, but you have a good point because apparently people are especially susceptible when they're traveling because of exposure. People are also taking less precautions and the AC doesn't help either, right? So traditional Chinese medicine, though, brings a different perspective that I wanted to hear about. And I spoke to a practitioner of Chinese medicine to learn more. Joining me now to explore some natural cold remedies is Dr. Jingduan Yang. Besides being a psychiatrist, he also specializes in integrative and traditional Chinese medicine. It's good to have you back. Now let's first explore the cause of a summer cold. According to traditional Chinese medicine, of course, what causes the summer cold season?
From Chinese medicine perspective, body has, during the summertime, they're much more open to, to get rid of excessive heat by, perspiration, and that time also it's make it vulnerable to receive cold energy that get into the body. For example, a strong, you come from outside, you come inside, and there's a lot of a cold air-conditioned rooms and cold, temperature. And also people tends to do, swimming and stay in the cold water for a long time and during the summertime. So a change of temperature quickly can also make people vulnerable to develop colds in the summertime. And so hydration is another issue. Sometimes people can get dehydrated. When you are dehydrated, you are vulnerable, compromised your immune system. But most importantly is the internal reasons, the people's own emotional status. Because if you are very stressed, that's compromise your immune system. People say, well, summer is a vacation time, people can be relaxed, and that's all good. But also when people travel, and when weather is too hot, and when family members get together, sometimes it's not necessarily relaxing.
Help me understand more about the differences between winter cold season and summer cold season. How specifically are they different for our body, and how, in response to that, how should we treat our bodies during those times?
So Chinese medicine talks all about energy. So they don't talk about virus or bacteria, okay? They talk about energy. So there's 5 energies can affect you, and the cold, and the heat, the dampness, the dryness, and the wind. So those 5 energies affect you can all create some form of cold, quote unquote, symptoms, like headaches, fevers, congestions, cough, heaviness, fatigue, and sleepiness, and all that symptoms, and even pain or headaches. Generally speaking, the summer season you have a more heat and dampness, particularly during the long summer time, which is August. It's very hot and humid, and the winter can be very cold and dry, right? So those can make them different. So you have a different cold caused by different form of energies, but they all need one energy to bring them into your body, which is the wind energy. So normally they come with the wind. So we always want the people, no matter it's a summer or it's a cold, stay away from area where there's a lot of winds come, because they can bring heat to you, they can bring dampness to you, they can bring dryness to you, they can bring coldness to you. Whatever they bring in, that's how they're going to interact with your body. As far as how you manifest the symptom-wise, depends your internal energy is like.
Wow. A lot of fascinating knowledge that we're allowed to tap into here. Thank you so much for those points and those sharing this knowledge. Dr. Jingduan Yang, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
That really was a fascinating interview, and I really appreciate the new perspective on medicine, because in the West, we always think about viruses and vitamin C to stave off colds and stuff like that, but learning how dampness can affect us is really important to stay prepared.
Right, whereas I grew up in a way where my parents would always tell me about the wind, and I think he even provided some insight into, because it's the same theory, right? The AC can probably harm you a little bit in the summer, going from the warm to the cold. And I think with that, it really provided a different perspective and explanation for why that is, because your pores are more open, so you're more susceptible.
Very interesting. Yeah, watch out for those quick changes in temperature. And coming up, we take a look at a woman who's revived a long-lost tradition, and now she's looking to find someone who shares the same passion. Stay tuned for that in just a moment.
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
Hi everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Welcome back. And you know, Evelyn, ahead of this next story about the coppersmith that I'm really looking forward to, I just got this antique sofa and it is just so cool. It has all this ornate woodwork on it. It's really great.
Oh wow, you should show me a picture sometime. Well, traditional methods have become increasingly rare though, so it's nice when some stick to the old ways of doing things. One Wisconsin woman has done exactly that after learning an ancient craft from her mentor. Let's take a look.
Sarah Dahman from Wisconsin is reviving a rare and long-lost tradition. She's the only known female coppersmith building copper cookware in the United States. Sarah fell into the profession, which has become her passion, purely by chance.
I actually fell into coppersmithing as a trade very kind of serendipitous. It was me researching for historical fiction novels that take place in pioneer America time period, the 1800s. And I wanted to know what the women especially were cooking in, what they would have had made for them in their kitchens. And I researched, I found an old smith near me who was doing this the old-fashioned way, using tools and procedures from the 17 and 1800s. And he let me come and observe him. And then I kind of kept going back and then starting to do it myself.
She would visit the shop 2 to 3 times a week, learning the ins and outs of traditional copper cookware. She soon found herself making copper cookware in line with her fascination for 19th century pioneer-era living. Sarah says it's all down to the kindness and guidance of her mentor.
Bob is one of the smartest men I've ever met. He's a grandfather to my children at this stage, but he's one of those people who never went to college, and everything he knows he's learned by doing. And he can build a motor from nothing. He can repair anything. And so he had fallen into this trade just by looking at old vintage lanterns and decided, oh, I can make that. I can figure out how to make that. And he's built this trade.
The materials she uses are all American-made, something Sarah sees as highly important. The best thing about being a coppersmith, she says, is being able to build something that will last for centuries.
When I was younger, I wanted to be an archaeologist. And now, in a way, I get to build things that 10,000 years from now will show up in an archaeological dig. Because copper doesn't rust, So somewhere, someday, someone's going to find something I built and look back and be like, wow, this survived so long.
Her advice for anyone starting as an entrepreneur is to say yes to trying as many new things and meeting as many new people as you can. Sarah says she hopes in the future she will find someone who shares an equal passion for coppersmithing and wants to invest their time to learn the trade.
There's something so satisfying, right? Making things with your hand like that, being so practical and really just creating something from scratch.
Yes, and something so useful. I mean, we think about today's world, we have these Teflon pans, with the nonstick, and it's really convenient, for flipping an egg, but if it gets scratched, then you can't use it. But these things, they stand the test of time.
They last for a long time.
Yeah.
All right, that's all for today. You can write us as usual at goodmorning@ntd.com. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.